各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看 JxJ 论坛，由我马健与我们的好朋友 Jim Noteware 为我们一起主持，讨论这礼拜的时事。Jim, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Jimmy. I'm doing well.
As we turn from into fall to autumn, can't believe it's almost the end of the year. Halloween is this week, and you blink and it's Thanksgiving and Christmas. Where did the time go by?
It's coming up the holidays are coming up very fast, and nobody's ready for them.
I mean, it's been a blur this last 2 years with what everyone has to go through. The days are long and the years are short. I never understood that when I was younger until now.
It's really true. And the older you get, the more you feel it.
Yeah. So as we discussed earlier, we do have our elections coming up. Early voting right now. Next Tuesday is election day. I understand. And no matter what, we always encourage folks to go out there and vote, whether it's a national election or local or state, go out and vote. So if you voted in the presidential election last year, that means you're still eligible to vote this year. So hopefully you guys go out there and vote. If you're in Houston, HISD, I would I would advocate for someone I know, Ann Sung, for a school board member. She's a teacher. I mean, she literally went to Harvard, came back home. She was locally educated in HISD, became a teacher, and she ran for trustee, and she's somebody that really knows the importance of education, and that is no special interest, bipartisan, somebody I know personally. So I hope you guys will go out there and give Ann Sung a vote. Jim is like, okay. Well, aside from school board elections, we also have other is there state positions also, right?
There are 6 state of Texas constitutional amendments, but they're such narrow subjects, and they apply only to Texas. I don't think they're worthy of taking our time here to talk about it. It's not exactly like Mr. Biden's spending plan that is getting the dominant share of the news reporting, both domestically and internationally. And then I guess he's leaving tonight to go to the Glasgow summit, or going to visit Europe, and then to the Glasgow summit on climate change early next week. But that seems to be capturing or taking all the oxygen out of the political room and all the news reporting here recently.
Well, granting that our audience mostly are Asian Americans, very interested in Sino-American relations. President Biden has misspoken so many times in the last few weeks. When he was asked about Taiwan as a strategic partner, he slipped and said that the United States will interfere and use military force. But later on, the State Department and Defense Department had to send out release refuting what President Biden said.
Right.
So it's the confrontation is getting more frequent. The conflict's been ratcheted up. CNN just had a exclusive interview with Tsai Ing-wen of Taiwan, and I would say this is since the United States normalized relations with Beijing and recognized them as the one China. Since China rejoined United Nations 50 years ago, I would say that the conflict has never been higher. Taiwan has never been more brazen. The United States have never been this vocal and open about escalating. Granted, Taiwan has never had a ruling party that is as corrupt and as using China, blaming China for everything is a very easy out nowadays, right? The cartelism. President Trump did that. It's always China's fault. It's an easy way out. To be fair, some of it is. A lot of it is not. But either way, the fact that CNN did an exclusive interview and China State Department have very strongly worded a response to it. I don't know how this benefits anybody involved, because in the end, strategically, China is a bigger trading partner for us. We use Taiwan to leverage, but we could very easily give up Taiwan once the United States get the objective that we want. Taiwan is a chip that could easily be given up. So I'm not sure what Taiwan thinks will get out of it. I know what China and us will get out of it. So it is dangerous. One slip, any kind of military conflict occurs, it will create widespread panic, and the markets will react. I think I'm very worried, Jim. I don't know what your take on it. I know it seems distant from us, but it's never been this bad.
No, it's really not distant from us. It's not distant. We all think in terms of geography. It's distant in terms of geography, but it's really not. I mean, if we have China as a trading partner for so many things, Taiwan is in between geographically. So if a ship can take goods back and forth, then it's right within a military sphere. And secondly, it's not distant in time. The conflicts are rising, the tensions are rising. And I'm hearing more and more people that I respect say that the time is getting closer where China will make a decision on what it wants to do vis-a-vis Taiwan, whether it wants to just keep it in the same kind of what we call strategic ambiguity, or whether it wants to assert more control over Taiwan. And what does that mean? I don't think anybody really knows. So some people say that it's better for all sides to operate with lack of clarity, leaving all the big questions still up in the air. Other people suggest it's better to declare positions and have the hardened lines hardened. And I can't offer a judgment on that. I'm just simply not close enough to the situation.
May I clarify a few things to you, get you up to date on some of the ambiguity and clarity? Okay.
Yeah, please.
This is the problem. It's not actually ambiguous, and it's actually very clear. The Constitution of the Republic of China, Taiwan is very clear. The Republic of China still claims the Constitution. What the president of Taiwan right now is doing is actually unconstitutional. If she really wants to declare independence, this is a democratically elected government. They could very easily put it on the ballot. They could easily declare independence. They could easily change the Constitution, but they don't. They don't, because the United States is the de facto decision maker for Taiwan. Mm-hmm. We're the ones that don't want them to do that, because we don't want this kind of conflict. We're not going to put in any troops or risk any conflict to start a war that would not matter to us in the long run. We're not protecting any assets or interests. Secondly, the reason why we maintain the status quo is because the United States set it up that way 50 years ago. Without Taiwan poking the bear, Beijing, Zhongnanhai, China does not want conflict with Taiwan. They don't. They have enough problems to grow. They want to continue us down this path and see what happens, because this mess is created 72 years ago. At the end of World War II, it never resolved, right? It's basically one China. Both sides are still China. Let's get this straight. The government of Taiwan is still the Republic of China. There is no country of Taiwan. There never has been. The CNN report states that China has never ruled Taiwan. That is absolutely not true. Not true. We have to stop looking at China as, say, just the Communist Party. We have to look at China as, okay, that whoever is ruling China will always claim Taiwan as part of China. It has been that way for 5,000 years. Mm-hmm. China was attacked and divided. Taiwan was ceded to Japan, to the Dutch, to, just like Hong Kong was, unwillingly, by force, by violence. Mm-hmm. So for the rulers of China, whether Xi Jinping or anybody else, none of them will ever carry this baggage historically, because that will be their legacy, allowing their country to be divided again. The shame of being attacked, the shame of China's demise for 200 years, for starting from the Qing dynasty, where Shanghai was carved out, Hong Kong was carved out, Taiwan was carved out, the northeastern territories were carved out to Japan and to Russia. They will not allow that again. And if they're willing to they're willing to risk everything to protect their land. I think if we reverse the perspective, look at us. If today Mexico decides to claim Texas as part of their land, we will risk everything to keep Texas as part of the United Nations. That is a fact. This is an invasion of our sovereignty, and that cannot be allowed. And this is what we're dealing with. For our State Department, it's intelligent to use Taiwan to leverage. We can use them to negotiate a lot of economic advantages for us. There's no doubt. But when it comes down to it, we both know. We both. We could rah and rile it up and say this is fighting for freedom and democracy. But let's not confuse this as this is internal conflict. There's a sovereign state. We need to learn our lesson from Afghanistan and Iraq and Korea and Vietnam. This is not going to happen. Do we hope that one day China would have a change of regime? We don't know. That is possible. So if they were a democratic country, will we still have the same stance? If this was reversed, if the national government in the Republic of China, Taiwan did not lose the war, if the Communist Party retreated to Taiwan, and China is still ruled by the nationalists, which is supported by the United States, will we take the same stance if the Nationalist Party were going to reclaim Taiwan? Right before the Korean War, right after World War II ended, I'm a student of this history. General MacArthur wanted to attack China, Communist China, starting using Taiwan as a base to reclaim China. It drive the Communist Party out. If Korean War didn't happen, who knows what would have been done. But that was one of the, well, obviously it didn't succeed, it didn't happen. Because there's a proxy war, right, between the United States and Soviet Union, essentially. So right now, history-wise and current events-wise, this is a continuation of that ambiguity and conflict from 70 years ago, never really resolved. So I don't know where to go from there, because there's enough economic issues between us and China right now. For example, what is your take on Enes Kanter, the center for the Boston Celtics, NBA player? He came out and criticized the NBA, criticized the Stars regarding, what is your take on that?
My take on, say it again.
On the NBA player criticizing the league and criticizing the Stars in the NBA for turning a blind eye to what he perceived as China's forced labor and whatnot.
Well, I guess I have two or three answers. The most important one is I think anybody, regardless of whether they're a basketball player or an assembly line worker in the United States, anybody should be free to comment on whatever they want based upon their judgment, their knowledge, etc. And people are free to make comments that they want. I'm not sure being a basketball player gives him any great insight or perspective, anything else that many of the rest of us don't have. But because basketball is so important and because there was the controversy a couple of years ago over Daryl Morey, the whole issue was front and center with basketball. Frankly, I'm kind of proud of him for sticking his neck out and saying things and challenging the status quo, not just of U.S.-China relations, but within the NBA. I give him a great deal of credit. I don't know that it's newsworthy to all of this, other than he's a basketball star that is offering his opinion. But given that it is getting the publicity, I say go for it. Go for it. I like people who are independent thinkers, even when I don't 100% agree with him. On this time, I'm glad that he's saying what he's saying.
That's the privilege of being American.
Yeah,
that is our right.
Yeah.
Our right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Mr. Cantor is basically blacklisted from his home country of Turkey. I don't even want to start on the atrocities committed in Turkey by their leader. He was persecuted. His family was arrested. So he knows what it means to not be free. Now, do I agree with what he says? No. I think he's uneducated about it, but I can't really blame him because the narrative has been set for a long time regarding China. Whether they're doing this or not, we do not have solid proof.
Right.
And even if we do, we're run by corporations now, I mean, You know, what's a shame is we talked about social media and technology for many months ago about its effect, about how it's affected our country as a whole, as how special interest groups and corporations are running our country. The article we discussed in our email about the Chinese scholar that you sent, Jim, that was amazing. That really affected me, and I sent it to quite a few people because I didn't know about this. About the advisor to the Communist Party.
Yeah,
everything he said has came true, and it's actually worse. I mean, we do need to study it, but we also see why by using us as example, especially using Taiwan, because Taiwan is now a fully elected, direct election.
Right.
Whatever hope and chance China had for Western-style democracy has been squashed by what happened in Taiwan, because Taiwan has turned into a dictatorship full of corruption and graft, and there's no accountability anymore. So the Communist Party, don't get me wrong, of course they want to maintain power. They want to maintain their grip, right? But they also have to rule the country and have success, right? Mm-hmm. So based on what they see here in the United States and also the technology and social media, we criticized China for a long time for not allowing Facebook, Instagram in, for not allowing Google, big data. Now you think back, they had the foresight because we allowed it. You see the Facebook testimony in Congress? They are evil. What they're doing is they know what's going on. They see the hatred. They see it. They see the fire burning and his children being poisoned. But all for profit doesn't matter. It's all bottom line. Do we blame them? We can, but this is how this economy is set up. This is how a free market economy is supposed to be, right?
Well, within limits. And I'm listening to this discussion and reflecting on the events that you're discussing or describing. I think the limits have not been observed. One of the things we all hold dear here in the United States is one of the responsibilities of the majority that does get elected and assumes power is to protect the rights of the minority. Just because you win an election doesn't mean you can lay waste to everything else. That's what's called majoritarianism. And the Middle East is famous for that. So I think every leader has a burden of protecting the minorities, even when they may find that politically difficult. But I think our history, and the U.S. has been chided recently for a terrible racial history. That's all true. No one can deny that. But the reality of it is things are getting better. They are a whole lot better this generation than they were a generation or two, let alone 100 years or two ago. And it's It's like President Obama and Bruce Springsteen had in their conversation this past week. We need a North Star to guide us, that North Star being the behavior in terms of what is right, and always strive to achieve things getting better. I don't agree with President Obama on very many things, but on that thing, I was 100% ready to salute him on that. That we have a lot of difficulty in our own history. We should not be afraid to discuss it. We should bring it out, be totally transparent about it, but at the same time, be committed to improving bad situations, and at the same time acknowledging what the pathway actually has been and will be. I know you were talking about other things, but I just couldn't help but think and bring that back into what I heard Mr. Obama and Bruce Springsteen. You talk about basketball players, I'll talk about rock musicians. So that's all fun.
President Obama was also a basketball player too. So
yeah.
One of his staff was a Duke player. But anyways, no, you hit it perfectly. You reflected perfectly. That's exactly what I want to say too. The big difference is that we acknowledge our mistakes and our failures.
Yeah.
And that both sides have the same type of voice. Whether you think it's too woke, whether you think it's a liberal agenda or whatever it is recorded. And there's a discussion, there's a disagreement, and there's even confrontation. But that's out and open. In a country that's a totalitarian or dictatorship or whatever you want to call it, history is being deleted, manipulated, and written down, and the other side will never be known. So you have generations of people that are being brainwashed by a certain agenda. When I talked about Mr. Cantor of the Boston Celtics, a basketball player, I feel like he's got the wrong information because that's what he reads and that's what the media is being paid to do. But in certain countries, they don't even have the chance to do that, to see the other side. Here, you have a chance to see both sides. Over there, you can't.
Yeah. Or both sides, all sides. And if his comments are incorrect, they're incorrect because he's been given false information, then I think the rest of us have a burden to help correct that information. We're all products of what we see and what we hear and what we experience.
But Jim, even then, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just thought what you said is true.
If we're being fed the wrong information, we got to correct it.
But even with everyone have the perspective or opinion, right? In a democracy, you have the right to voice your stance, your opinion, no matter, unless you're inciting violence or, if it's just that, then it's encouraged. But there are things that scares me that I see. The Chinese Communist Party celebrating their 100-year anniversary.
Yeah, that was a month or so ago.
Yeah. So they're ramping up all kinds of patriotic themes, making movies. They're smart now, right? Instead of just using propaganda and just hardline stuff, they're putting their money, the government, state-sponsored movies, state-sponsored TV shows, cultural influence. I look at some of their stuff because I can tell you right now, I am the China expert. Out of all of Houston, I probably know China and Taiwan more than anybody. And I'm not ashamed to say that because I put in the time. I see what they're doing. And this is worse. Before, we know the government have their line. We know that what the propaganda is. What they're doing now is they're using our strategy of making popular movies, blockbusters, essentially rewriting history. So in China, the number one movie, that the Chinese market is the number one market in the world now. I don't know if you knew that. That for movies, they overtook us years ago. So if they're the number one movie in China, that means the number one movie in the world. This movie was about the Korean War. I haven't seen it, but I see the chatter. It's very distressing. Basically, this is the argument. When we make movies, Hollywood make movies, we're not going to make a war movie and we lose it, right? The fact is, in World War II, we did win. That's a fact. This is true.
Right.
You see, the way that, I don't want to say the West. Let me just say Hollywood. The way we look at war, look at historical stuff. We look at a loss of human life. We look at individualistic, right? That's the Western way. When
Right.
China makes these movies, it praises the state, the nation as one, as a whole. They see the sacrifice of individuals as necessary and is shoved under the rug. But what scares me is they completely change the narrative. No one's going to sit here and say, well, they're going to make a movie and say they lost. They don't need to do that. But you cannot just make a movie and go out there and say that they made a movie about Korean War. If anyone with half a brain, you know what? You don't want to look at our written version of it? Fine. Go read Korea's version. Go read Russia's version, right? You just see all sides and you come out with something.
Yeah.
But what China did, though, is completely rewrite it, saying that they were defenders of the nation that we attacked. No, North Korea attacked, crossed the line, attacked South Korea. The United Nations passed a resolution to go in to defend the South. But China has turned it into where they are the ones being defensive, that the aggressor, and they claim complete victory, which is also not true at all. And China lost, I think, 10-1. Their casualty was 10 or 20-1 to what happened with the South Korean army and the United Nations joint forces. And you know, the sad thing is that China has social media now, and they have chatter online. People are not dumb. Chinese people they're human. This is not China in 1970s where there's no information. Now they could see, they can read. So there are people that have half a brain that goes out and say, hey, this is not what happened.
Right.
Or why is the sacrifices being dismissed? And I mean, this is, you want to celebrate victory, that's fine, but you cannot change the main, well, guess what? They're immediately suspended, disappeared. This by no means is it's not good. Being too nationalistic, rile up this pride, it could easily slip. In Chinese, we call it 擦枪走火. You could pull the trigger very quickly and all hell breaks loose. Real blood will be shed. China they're very ignorant. You cannot stoke these fires because this fire could turn around. There's nationalistic fire. It could easily turn around and burn them too. Right? Because once you incite a crowd, you don't know what side the crowd turns.
Right.
You don't look at what happened to Capitol riots. You don't want to do these kind of. You want to use logic and reason and facts.
Right.
Anyways, rant over. I just want you to understand what's going on. The past few weeks, looking at the past month, their celebration, everything adds up. And then China is doing a lot of unusual steps. So, what is grappling their headlines? Is is not just Alibaba's founder, right, Jack Ma. They are arresting, disappearing movie stars, actors, singers. Most recent, last week, was they call him the Prince of Piano, Li Yundi. He is the most famous classical pianist in China. When he was 18, 20 years ago, he won the international Chopin competition. And then he's a one-man industry now, right? He not just performs, he has his own TV shows and whatnot. 20 years, and it has a great image, and he also has a lot of official titles for the government. He's at the top of his game and worth a lot of money and a lot of influence. He was arrested. He was the normal way they operate is they release information to the news official, and they say that they were gambling or drugs or prostitution, whatever. For him, it was that he was soliciting a prostitute. But let's be honest. In China, a lot of online chatter says it's not the first time he's done it. He's single. He's not married. If he was doing that, I mean, it's not like the government didn't know. They chose to do this to punish him, to use an example as what, and this is, in the past few months, is absolutely being ratcheted up. Yeah. So I see these developments, and I don't know, Jim. This is not healthy. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good.
And as an American from a long way away, as I just said, it was not that distant, but it's a real perplexing situation for what the average American should do or not do, or believe or not believe about all of this, because it's a huge worldwide issue. And the consequences of letting things get out of control, as you just said, are extremely high.
On one hand, I could say what they're doing. Oh, wow, look at what we did with Facebook, allowing them to poison and change the election. They didn't let Facebook in on Google, and maybe they made the right decision. They didn't want big data to control their country, where corporations come before the state. But then on the other hand, you see this corrosion of individual liberty and how they can pick and choose and use anyone as an example, no matter how connected or successful or how much public support you have. Turn it around. Could you imagine a Hollywood star or Bruce Springsteen, whoever it is, and whoever's in White House disagree with this person and decide to use government resources to prosecute this person, publicly shame them, and then disappear, basically erase from any online footprint. So these folks that I mentioned in China that has been called out by the party, that's been used as an example, their entire profile has been erased. Their entire footprint is as if this person no longer exists. All their endorsements are canceled, their online website information, everything is purged. I mean, there's a huge team of people that does that. So you want to talk about Big Brother? The pros and cons of Big Brother is right there. I mean, it really is. And you have the wrong leadership, or if you slip and it goes extreme, and you can never go back.
Yes,
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Now,
on a much smaller scale, I always say, anytime you say something, you cannot unsay it. Once the words are out, they're out, or your actions are out, they're out. You can't recall them. So,
because the public figures, you have a responsibility, or if you're in a leadership position, you're a politician or a leader, you have to do that. Even for us as media, we have to be accountable. Me and you cannot sit here and incite or preach violence, or we state lies just to gain viewership. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
But most people understand, right? I mean, you look at what's popular now. It's all very extreme stuff. You appeal to only your core audience. The more riled up it is, the more outlandish, outrageous, the more views you get. Nobody wants to listen to someone talk about facts or talk about both sides and to be fair. Nobody really wants to do that anymore. So it's very shameful. But Jim, we always appreciate listening to your insight. Like I said, this week this last 3 weeks, the conflict between China, Taiwan, and U.S. has really ratcheted up. It really has, because it was Taiwan's Republic of China, Taiwan's National Day on October 10th, which I don't believe we take during that week.
No, I think you're right. I think we did not. You're right.
Yeah. And then China's National Day was October 1st. So this entire month of October, there's a lot of flexing and showing of force. And on top of the economic tension, on top of all the competition and a lot of front page news regarding the problems in China, we talked about the housing crisis there. So let's see what happens. I mean,
let's see what happens. I think the big question mark that China has to deal with is its own internal economy. It's much weaker than I think most of the rest of us have thought for a while, and that is a very important factor for everyone around the world. And
absolutely,
let's just keep our eye on it.
I'm very glad you brought it up. You're very insightful for someone that does not. I mean, you have many focus on many different things, but a lot of people are not. I guess your intuition and your knowledge. What you just said is really important. China has a lot of issues that are actually buried under the headlines that people don't see. They're doing these big show actions of public figures, entertainment being publicly lynched to cover up a lot of their other stuff too. They're rolling blackouts in China for the first time. Rolling blackouts. Wow. There are floods that killed a lot of people. There was a fire. I mean, there are big public disasters where they cannot cover it. But what they could do is what the media here does too, right? Lead it, right? You could create another headline. Take the focus, the spotlight away from what truly does matter. So yes, internally, they have so many problems. So Taiwan is a distraction. They don't need this. China does not want to have war. I guarantee you that. Beijing does not want to have armed conflict.
No. And if the US... Go ahead. I interrupted. Go ahead.
No. It's created by Taiwan. This is one-sided. I promise you. This is facts. Taiwan is the one poking the bear. They couldn't maintain this coexistence for another 100 years, which is what happened in the last 70 years. But Taiwan needs to create conflict to take away the high employment rate, their failure in their vaccine, their high death rate, the corruption of government starting from the top. Yeah. The president of Taiwan has a fake degree. I mean, literally, it is public knowledge. How could you still be president? I mean, if you have a fake one, just admit it. I'm sorry. No. What they did is they arrested journalists, arrested American citizens. They shut down TV stations. But then they turn around and say, China is prosecuting me. They're totalitarian. Well, you're just as bad. China may not be better, but you claim to be a democracy. You claim to be the right electoral, where you're elected by the people, but you're not doing those things. So, Jimmy,
excuse me, just a moment. Yeah.
I'm believing that Vicky is.
Vicky's still there?
Yes.
Okay.
The last one.
All right. I'll be here for a while. Okay. Thank you, Julie.
No worries, Jim. We're about
You got to edit that out. Okay.
We got that out. So time is up. I appreciate you. Okay. We should definitely. I think we'll discuss more in depth about China, U.S. and also our housing crises are looming here too, here in the United States, which you definitely know a lot more about that. And we'll discuss the results of election next week. And I hope you have a great week, Jim, and enjoy this beautiful fall weather in Houston.
It's phenomenal. So thank you, Jimmy.
Take care. Thank you, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.